Welcome, welcome.
Hey guys, we have Dina there with her fuzzy background. Hey, there you go. Good to see you again, Dina. All right, well, let's get started with some questions. We didn't get our link out today, so we've got a little bit smaller group getting started. So appreciate you guys remembering the link and don't have to get reminded each week. And those of you who went to the live meeting, Robin, Jason, and Krista, and Dina. I know, Jeff, you weren't able to make it that time. So what's going on? What do you have to follow up on our questions that you want to start with from the meeting? There's Master Oliver.
Hey guys. Yeah, Master Smith is logging in. He thought it was Wednesday. I think it's Monday, and he thinks it's Wednesday. So, hey, why don't we, Master Moody? Why don't we, as everybody's getting logged in here, figure out what some of the takeaways are. Rob, it's wonderful to have you here. Welcome back. It's great to have another Canadian in the group here again. Jason, let's start with you. You are very generous in sharing your notes. And by the way, hopefully I wasn't too harsh on Sunday. I kind of felt like I took the most contributing person in the room and beat him up. So I apologize if it felt that way.
No problem.
Yeah. But
well, so I was going to say, so the biggest thing for me,
you know, we love you, except for
yeah, oh yeah,
doesn't like you, but everybody else loves you.
Yeah. Now, I think the biggest thing for me, and this wraps all of it, and I've got several other things. So the things from Master Moody was phenomenal with the bullying stuff, realizing that what we're actually teaching is conflict resolution, not bullying prevention.
Yeah.
So working on creating something new for that is fantastic. I think the biggest thing for me anyway was kind of tying 3 days together. So the first day where we were focusing on time management, right? And realizing it's really easy to get sidetracked where you focus, okay, we got to get renewals down and we're working on that. And then we drop the ball on marketing. Okay, now we're going to get that done. And we're doing that and we're doing the renewals. And now we're, not focusing on retention or whatever. So it's easy to do that. So we were talking about time management the first day. Then when Bob talked on the third day, so he's talking about leadership, right? And you've got the art of leadership and then the science of leadership. And so the science of leadership being, how do we lead ourselves? How do we focus ourselves to be the most optimal? Are we getting enough water, right? Are we getting enough sleep? Are we getting enough exercise? And by doing that, it's going to help us get more stuff done. We're going to be more creative. We're going to be more productive and all that. And then Lee, when she talked on Sunday and she's talking about our energy, right? We've got our physical energy, our mental energy, our emotional energy, and same sort of thing. Like, what are we doing with positive self-talk that's setting us up again to be productive and creative? And actually, all three of those are connected. And so me realizing in the past, my health has always been on the back burner because I've been so busy on work and trying to get this stuff done, right? And I don't have time to go to the gym. Or I've got 15 minutes and I don't have time to go to the grocery store and cook something healthy. Okay, I've got 15 minutes, 7-Eleven right there. There's a hot dog. That's not great, but at least I get food, right? And so that's how it's been in the past. And my body has taken a toll.
Tuesday, Thursday, 5:45.
At one point, I was up to 350 pounds and I've dropped that. I'm now down to 247, but I still got another 40 pounds to go or so. And so what I realized is I'm looking at it completely backwards, right? Instead of I need to get shit done and then I can take care of myself, it needs to be completely the other way around. I need to be taking care of myself. Number one, I have to make that the priority. And by doing that, by getting the fluids, by getting enough sleep, by getting the cardiovascular work and all that stuff, that's going to help me be more productive. It's going to help me be more creative. It's going to help me be able to think better and all that stuff. So if I make that the priority, it will actually help me in other aspects of my life. And so for me, that was a huge takeaway for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, if you only got that, then that is huge, right? The more you wear yourself down, I mean, I know how many times I've done that to myself over the years. Then everything else falls apart around you, right? And it's also not a good lead by example for your staff or for your students, right? Is you want them to get the idea that, working out, being a product of the product, all of that stuff is super high priority. And then that permeates through everything. I saw Master Smith here. Maybe we lost him, but
Who's
that
there?
was, oh, there he is. Oh, okay. You're there. Master Smith, that was one of probably the top of the list of something you were always good with your staff and with the Junior Institute staff. I mean, all the way to everybody was coming in the morning, and we were bringing people in to do nutritional workout and so forth. And of course, it helped that it was a stable of fighters as well. But really staying on top of getting people subscriptions to magazines that are appropriate to the extent that magazines are left in the world, but reading and so forth on those topics. And it was something that I was reminded of when Bob Pizzini, I thought he was fabulous, spoke, and with his book, what I told him to the side, what I really liked about his book from the standpoint of tying with what we're doing is that he tied all that stuff together. He tied the nutritional, sleep, exercise, everything together with peak leadership. I thought that's something that it's been a while since we've spent any time talking about. I posted the links to the different books and different podcasts. Really everybody should be going through on a regular basis. The Huberman podcast he mentioned, name isn't coming to me right now, but Peter Attia. Peter Attia's book is a great textbook on that. Tony Robbins' new book, which was done with a couple of the very highest level, best respected MDs in the field, is very good. Tony Robbins has a company that he's part of called Life Force, and they do blood work and nutritional support, and I think they're predominantly behind the scenes a supplement company. But it's really good stuff, high level, well documented. So all of that stuff is extremely important, and we should be focused on. Anything to add to that, Jason?
Yeah. The other thing for me was the renewal blitz.
Yeah.
So in the past, that's something that we just did it the first time this last year. And now we're, doing it. And I looked at it as, well, I'm not sure if I want to do it twice a year. I talked about this when we were at the meeting, right? Because to me, that feels like a very salesmanship thing. Well, you got to do the renewal, you got to do the renewal. And so I've been worried about putting that in front of people and turning them off if we're trying to sell them too often. And what I realized is, no, God damn it. What that is we need to be renewing them within the first 2 to 4 months, right? And if we're not, then that renewal is the backup net. And now, so that's where we need to have those twice a year. And if they don't sign up and they hear it another time, well, who cares? Who cares if they hear it 50 times, right? If they're not signing up really within those first 6 months, we're probably not going to get them. Right?
Yeah.
So we need to have those so that whoever signs up that's that net. That's catching them there, right? So that was a big thing for me. And then Master Moody saying, okay, well, this is because I was trying to figure out, well, how do we do that? Master Moody was saying, you call the first one in, I think, May and June, train for, black belt goals for the summertime, basically, right? And then the other one is training for life, right? So those two different blitzes and marketing them as different things. They're the same thing, but marketing them different. So we're writing up that's huge. That's going to be really, really good.
Well, and I would phrase it in a slightly different way. Really what you're doing is you're focusing on your white and gold belts. So even the audience is different at each of them, right? Is if you've renewed your white and gold belts that you enrolled in the fall, they're not really going to get in the middle of that, other than all the way through the school, we should be constantly renew and review your goals, right? We should be constantly doing that. But that's not a sales thing. That's a follow through, achieve what you've committed to. I always viewed it this way: this is aimed at the white belts predominantly, secondarily the gold belts that have it renewed. And so if we do it 3 times a year, frankly, we're not hitting the same audience. The idea of May is you're scraping up all the renewals you missed January, February, March, April, and the idea of November, December is everybody you missed who enrolled, say July, August, September, October. And I was, in the past designing it with the idea that September, October early November were our biggest enrollment months, and then it became, who would have thought June, July, August became the biggest enrollment month. So you end up with picking up everybody that hasn't been renewed in the first 2 months. So really, you're not even repeating it for the same people. And I think that's a mistake we make, is oftentimes with curriculum, with structure, with what we're doing, we keep trying to come up with new stuff because it gets bored. We get bored with it, or our staff gets bored with it. But the new white belt hasn't seen any of this stuff. As they get to gold and orange and green, they haven't seen, it's all new to them. So, we don't have to worry about it getting old if the people are cycling through the thing we're doing, as opposed to, everybody's getting the same thing all the time.
Yeah. Well,
Hey,
I've been in the group 10 years.
Yeah.
And I've heard you saying stuff like that, but it didn't click,
Yeah.
until I'm like, oh, okay, well then, yeah, we can change the messaging for like what you're saying with the higher belts. And it's, what are we doing for the summers? How are we setting our goals? It's easy to get sidetracked with all the traveling that we do and all that stuff. Okay, well, December, beginning of the new year, what are our goals? What are we going to work on? What are we going to improve on? And that's the messaging for everybody else. And then it's the renewal process for as you said, the white belt group, right? I've been hearing you say that, but it didn't really click 10 years later. That's why I've been in the group for this long, is there's always things I'm picking up, and it's fantastic.
Well, and that's why, Jeff, you can't miss the live meetings, Jeff. And Ron's not on video. We'll beat up Ron too.
Yes, sir.
You can't miss the live meetings. Isn't that right? Everybody who was there, who says you can't miss the live meetings? See the hands, Jeff? I mean, see there, you even get a thumbs up on that one. Jeff Cielo, let's all give Jeff another round of applause for being a wonderful host. You went above and beyond, and really did a great job. Let's go to you next, Jeff. What were some of your takeaways?
Huge takeaways. The first one being looking at it from a top-down view. So the way you guys explained it, this time made complete sense to me, and I know that it's been a long time coming. You looked at it as, okay, well, what are the end results? What are the end metrics? And then from the end metrics, you went backwards. And I've heard that before, but not presented the same way this time around. And then you presented it based on other businesses and different models, and I was like, oh, now it makes a whole lot of sense. And you just cutting out all the non-essentials. In other words, he came into the business and basically walked around, and this was the worst thing, is the day before nothing was ready, and I was like, okay, I got another day. I'm getting ready to teach a little ninjas class, and who pokes his head in? Master Oliver sticks his head in. Hey, sir. I'm like, nothing was done. So that goes to show you should be prepared at least a week in advance. But Master Oliver, Master Moody, Master Smith went all the way around the studio, thought of different things right away that could be improved, talked about taking away all our paper, throwing everything away that we didn't need, and even restructuring it for when and if we go ahead and move locations, so we can go ahead and have a better flow. It was a very eye-opening thing, because it went to, this is the mission. What are the different things needed in order to accomplish that mission? And it was just very, very well put together. I got nothing but good things to say.
Yeah. What are some specific takeaways beyond that, Jeff? What are you going to do differently starting yesterday?
Starting yesterday, we'll definitely increase the prices for sure. Yeah. I've already done that, and I just have to go ahead and I'm switching the basic class to make it a basic class. Yeah. So as soon as this testing is over, I'll switch everything over, and I'll go definitely down that road, because now it makes sense of why we're doing it, because the kids are in a basic class, which cycles through and goes through things that are going to improve them for the regular class. And then if they're committed, then they become leadership or black belt club. And that made a whole lot of sense to me. So definitely the price will definitely increase, definitely have a basic class. And I already have the the materials ordered to go ahead and put up the black belt signs, and this is a black belt school and everything that needs to get put up.
Yeah. Well, one of the things also is I think, Jack, it was you that, and I had forgotten to ask the question, is we were debating behind the scenes should we be doing the meetings in an active martial arts school? Should we be in a hotel or some other venue? And you were saying, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was you, Jack, saying that you liked it being in a martial arts school, seeing somebody else's school, getting some behind the scenes. I'm attributing it to the right person, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that helped a lot. Just going to Jeff's school and seeing how things were laid out. I went in early Wednesday night. I saw him teach a class a little bit, teach an intro. And I think it's great. There's so many great schools out in our group here. And if we could go and just, it was a lot I learned, like some things on my vision board, just all kinds of little stuff I picked up just having it at his school. So I'd love you to come to my school and critique the what out of it, and just and so I think it really accomplishes two things. Not only do we learn what you're teaching us, but we can also, just like we send you ads to critique ads, man, you just come here and critique our school, and that'd be great. I'm up for that. I don't know if the rest of the group is, but I'd like that.
Well,
Yes.
I would welcome and suggest everybody at the minimum to do photos of the school, exterior, interior, different spaces, video walkthroughs, and one thing or another for feedback. I am not fresh on what many of the schools look like right now. Chris, I was at your school, but different location many years ago. Tim's school, I haven't physically been there, but I've seen photos. Master Smith has been there physically. Jason, I've been at your school many times over the years now. When we go to visit a school, I always think there's a balance of two things. Is the tendency behind the scenes is let's pick out the biggest, best, sparkliest and one thing or another. But the actual plant and facility tends not to be, quote unquote, the secret sauce, right? What there are with the location is several components. The first most important is the immediate demographics of the area, right? I could be in a beautiful, sparkly new shopping center. A lot of people have made this mistake in an area that's not built out yet. Population density is low. There's not, maybe in 5 years it's going to be a great location, assuming there's not a recession, but right now it's not there. So the first is established quality. If you're in the kids market, family demographics, how many elementary school, how big are they, what the income demographic profile looks like, what the psychographic and the mix of that, right? And even the ethnic profile. I've said it many times, but in the Denver metro area, I was always looking for first, second generation Hispanic was one of my favorite markets. So just because of the psychology they bring to the table with their kids. So the Indian immigrant market, the Asian immigrant market, all have a very similar profile. But looking at the immediate demographics of the area is really the first priority, right? Then the second is first impression of the exterior of the school, and the first impression of the school as they walk in. What happens on facility once they're enrolled is there's very little that the facility has to do with whether they renew or they stay, other than if there's irritants that are a problem, right? One of the first early realizations for me that 80% of the decision was being made by moms, and of course that came from data. But in my own schools, it was, a mom told me, which they rarely do, is that there was never any toilet paper in the bathroom, and they weren't going to renew because we didn't have any toilet paper in the bathroom. And you know, how important is it in the facility that the mom feel comfortable in the facility, that it be a good fit? And there's all kinds of data on this. There's one of the research projects that I saw was you know, the difference in different income categories on what they perceive to be quality or not. At the lowest income, glittery decorations up on the walls and hand done things and so forth, you know, they had a very positive view of the fact that there was effort made to decorate and make it a cheery environment. At the upper ends, simple, clean, more expensive accoutrements and so forth. We'll say that word 3 times fast, but that made more of a difference. And so I do think you have to look at the area you're in, Krista, where you're in, Jason, where you're in. It's very important to feel like it's a good fit when they walk in the door, because you are both in very high income, high percent professional people in the thing. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I think Master Smith is where Danny Shulman and Mark Glazier were with their schools in New York. I always thought they went from it looks good first impression and quality in the environment to spending probably 5 times as much money on the facility as they needed to, with probably little, if any, benefit from it. So what I'm always afraid of is, let's show somebody a school that's 9,000 square feet, and at the same time we're saying you need 7 square foot per student. So for 300 students, 2,100 is enough, or that there's going to be the wrong takeaway in that. Do you want to add to that, Master Smith?
No, I think you covered about everything, Master.
Yeah. Jeff, as far as everyone giving you some feedback on the school, and what I might add to it is what I would always do. Well, I have one question. What percentage of the classes are you actually teaching?
Around 50% of the classes.
Okay.
I actually need to replace an instructor in one of my basic classes. So I'm going to probably take that class because they're not doing what they need to do.
Yeah, I would say your first priority is get a full-time head instructor so you don't have to be out on floor for any given class. As owner or operator, what happens if you get stuck where you have to be on the floor? Things are happening at the front desk, sales transactions are happening, the phone is ringing, parents are needing service one thing or another, and you don't know what's going on because, as we all know, teaching is an all-consuming activity, right? If I try to be distracted while I'm on the floor, I've got the 7-year-old over on the side kicking somebody rather than, you know, it being under control. So I would make it your first highest priority to get a full-time instructor in there so that you're supervising the school, not running the floor.
And I would add to that, Master Oliver.
Yeah.
I was never on the floor teaching unless I was training the next person to take that spot.
Yeah.
And don't just throw a new person in there on the floor. You want that person doing exactly what you're doing. So yeah, for the first couple of weeks, you might be in all those classes with that new instructor. And then after the first 2 weeks, then I'm going to jump in as I see it's not going to plan. And then I did the same thing in the office. I wasn't putting a program director in there who hadn't sat and watched me for at least a couple weeks or a month. And I was able to watch them for a couple weeks and a month. Remember, the training is twofold. One, they watch me do it. 2, I watch them do it to make sure it's right where I want. And 3, we also have to do it before we get to the class, you know, so we can correct those mistakes that we saw from the last class. So you have to have that in-class training, but also the out-of-class training. Once I got the office, the classroom fixed, then I've got to make sure the office is fixed. And I want to make sure that my program director is saying the same verbiage and doing the same enrollment steps that I'm doing. And same thing with the first intro. If whoever's teaching that first intro, I'm going to teach it first. Then I'm going to watch them teach it. And then I can correct what needs to be done. We'll do training before they come back to that next class. So everything is in your position, Jeff, as an owner operator and every other school owner we have. You don't have to do everything, and you shouldn't, but you have to be able to do everything just in case you lose an instructor or you lose a program director. You can step in and train the next one. The biggest mistake that I hear school owners make is, oh, I just take care of the classroom and I have so-and-so is doing the office because I'm not very good at that. Well, then you're in big trouble. You better damn learn how to be good at that because it's your business. And if you have somebody that's better than you, they're going to hold you over a barrel or it'll backfire on you later.
Yeah. So Jeff, that would be recommendation number one, is get a full-time instructor so you don't ever have to be anchored. And, when you say I'm going to start teaching next class, really it should be you have an instructor teaching all the classes. And if you need to do a little extra supervision, jump in to help out with things or one thing or another. For myself over the years, the only time I really taught classes were staff training and black belt classes. And everything else was, I never walked into a school to do a turnaround or a startup as head instructor. I walked in as branch manager / program director, but I spent an awful lot of time making sure the floor was in really good shape. The other suggestion, Jeff, is I would get yourself really attuned to take a fresh look at the school, step out into the parking lot every day, and think about how the first impression looks. And, there's a lot of signage on the windows, a lot of one thing or another, but a lot of it looks kind of old, looks like it's been there forever, one thing or another. And what you might want to do is simplify a little bit, or refresh a lot of that stuff and get it to look a lot. I mean, first impression is everything. So the first thing you want to do is the view from the parking lot, the view from the front door, and then the view as they walk in the reception area. Each of those, you want them to be a really good first impression. So take a look at the front entrances, at the signage on the windows, at the way everything looks, and try to get it updated, cleaner, a better first impression. The second thing, and this is, often causes me controversy, but the people that you had working at the front desk weren't presenting themselves very well. I would, at the very least, I always had all of my staff black slacks, black shoes, polo shirt, or full uniform. And
even the polos were, logoed. It was our school.
Well, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And you saw several of the members that were at our live meeting, how their staff was all in their warm-up jackets or their varsity jackets or their polo shirts or whatever. So it looked, it looks the part.
Yeah.
Rather than just street clothes. I just don't like that street clothes look when somebody comes in. And I like a polo shirt better than a t-shirt, just because the t-shirt sometimes might look a little too casual.
Yeah,
Well,
or
you guys are not-
a
Well, I was gonna say, you guys are also not saying polo shirt with a logo is the uniform. It's the same polo shirt with the same logo. It's
Right.
Consistent. It's not, we don't have a blue one and a red one and a green one, and they can wear whichever one they want, and different pants and that are nice. It's the same color pants, the same color shoes, the same color polo. And it would be, they don't get to have different ones, because my guys probably have 100 different t-shirts and a bunch of different polo shirts from different crap, but they all wear the same stuff when it's,
Yeah, look at Tim's right now that he's wearing, and Jack, what he's wearing. That's going to look appropriate. Now, sometimes you could wear that shirt you have on there, Jack, with the karate pants and a belt, or you could even have it with black slacks or whatever, or warm-up pants. There you go. Yeah. And those warm-up, you get black warm-ups or with the white stripe or something, something that matches, that looks good. Or you wear slacks, and I never like to wear the slacks, so I'd usually wear my warm-ups. or my karate pants with a belt and with that shirt. If I was teaching, I would have my karate pants on and sometimes a polo, sometimes the polo and a warm up over it with our school logo. So, or the full uniform. So it just depends on what you're doing. If I was going to be teaching the whole evening, I'd usually have my whole uniform on then. But you know, if you're just teaching a class or two, you can, as long as it's logoed out and you look part of the, you know, you look the part.
Well, and what we're focusing on is staff look. Is my rule of thumb, and you know, at one time it was black slacks, red shirt, then it went to black slacks or black, actually, black, and then we traded it to blue. But the rationale for the color schemes were whatever the staff was wearing was the same thing that the instructors were wearing in a street clothes look, right? So the instructors were in black pants, blue top, black belt, obviously. The staff uniform was blue polo shirt or blue dress shirt embroidered, and we had dress shirts that were blue, and we had polo shirts that were blue. And you know, they had a you know, different events called for different things, but it had to be everybody was looking the same. So either dress shirt, logoed, polo shirt, logoed, same color scheme as the instructor uniform, slacks, no jeans. So I didn't want somebody showing up in blue jeans, or especially torn blue jeans or whatever. And I was very picky about shoes, right? So in uniform, in the staff uniform, it was black slacks, black shoes, blue shirt. And that doesn't mean that has to be yours. You know, in the before the look was untucked, is, you know, I was picky about what belt they were wearing. You know, somebody showed up in black slacks and a brown belt, you know, they were getting hell to pay. It was a black belt, and I mean like leather belt, you know, with a nice buckle. And that's, it sounds picky, but with new staff training, we took them to the hair salon and got them all groomed well, showed them how to do personal hygiene, because the worst thing you want to do is somebody walks in and they stink. You know, we bought them their first, you know, uniforms. So a new person coming in got a couple dress shirts, a couple polo shirts, a couple pair of slacks, shoes, the whole bit. And then it was like, this is what you you know, need to wear. In practical terms, I was always buying the shirts for them, you know, and uniforms. But it wasn't like they could just order whatever they wanted. It was periodically we'd do reorders and, you know, and so forth. But that's how picky you want to be about all of this stuff, right?
Sir, I have a question, if I
yeah.
could.
Go ahead.
So, and I know some of the answers I'm going to get, but I want you to say this.
Okay.
What would you do when you have a staff full of absolutely phenomenal members and employees?
Yeah.
But this issue seems to get, if I'm yelling about it, it happens for a while, and then it falls off, and then I yell at it some more, and then it falls off, and so on and so forth, and I get tired of yelling about it. What would be your suggestions?
What is it you're yelling about?
Dress code.
Oh, I'm going to give the same answer I know Master Moody would give. Is if somebody walks in the door and they're not in proper uniform, they U-turn and go get in proper uniform.
Yeah. And I would add on to that, the yelling about it. I'm a big believer in things being written down. So it's a little bit a corollary to the operations manual discussion. That's not an important thing to have a big operation manual, but I think when I yell at you, I don't really yell about stuff, but I think my staff would also all say that I'm really strict about things. So there's a difference between strict and yelling.
Okay, well, and I might be exaggerating when I say
no, I get it. But
Yeah.
remember, we're all powerful people to our staff. You know, like if we raise our voice a little bit, sometimes that comes across as yelling too, you know. And if it's all written down what your dress code is really clearly, then it also helps us be really consistent about what we require of them. So like for dress code in particular, just like Disney has, and Master Oliver talks about Disney a lot, even though they're not following, I mean, they still have their code.
They're sliding gradually down.
Right. But it's still written down, and so they do have boundaries. The boundaries are just expanding, but my boundaries are tighter than Disney's now, I would say. But all those things, especially in dress code, I think, and we have one for tardiness too. I published those both on the Facebook group. Tardiness and what that means and how you have to ask for vacation time or time off and things like that, like a month in advance. All that stuff is very, very clear. So if you've never told somebody, for example, let's use like vacation time, that they needed to ask for time off a month in advance, and then they asked for it the day before, and you go, hey, that's not reasonable. Well, I agree it's not reasonable, but like it's not written down. So, and so some of those things, that they could wear like a nose ring, you might think that's not reasonable, but somebody served us dinner the other night in Virginia Beach, and they had a nose ring, and like it didn't bother me.
Not nose ring, little diamond here. Nose ring looks like it's the cow being dragged across.
Right. But that wouldn't be okay for a staff member. And they had green hair tints too. That wouldn't be okay for a staff member. The restaurant we were at, it was like no big deal. Here it was a big deal, or as an instructor, it'd be a big deal. So I would say two things. One, make sure it's written down. Two, as Master Oliver said, it's got to be 100% compliance. It can't be 98% compliance. Otherwise, you'll have trouble, and that puts you in a bad position sometimes, because sometimes you tell them to turn around and then you got to teach class, or you got to combine a couple classes, or you don't get to do the intro that day because you had to teach class. I mean, you got to sacrifice to keep compliance. But if you do that one or two times, then you never have an issue over time. But if you go, well, I got to let them teach class today because I don't have anybody else to teach class, so you got to bite the bullet and be strict. So that would be the answer. Does that help, Tim?
Okay.
Well, and I would add to that. I mean, I've had people show up at our Monday morning meeting, and everything else was fine, but they, overslept and hadn't shaved. So I sent them down to the 7-Eleven on the corner and said, go clean up before you sit here in the meeting. And go buy a razor, go buy, shaving cream, and go clean up, right? You can't look that way. And this is a staff meeting. This isn't in front of clients, right? The way that Disney approaches a lot of this stuff is they're very, very firm in their language about on stage, off stage. They have their theater language that they've developed. So when you walk behind the scenes in the parks, the staff areas oftentimes are like completely trashed. We were at before they turned it into Downtown Disney at Pleasure Island, and we walked outside one of the big clubs, and there was a rickety old rusted metal table with a ashtray with cigarette butts, like it was Mount Everest, piled over the top. But the logic is everywhere you walked into a staff area, there was like a mirror, and there was a notification: you're going on stage now. Right. Think about if you've ever been, at the backstage at a Broadway theater or a, local high-end theater where they do stage productions. Oftentimes the backstage area is a disaster, but on stage is exactly appropriate for the show. So that's the way they talk about it. Is anytime you're on stage, here's what has to be in character, and that's the other part of the language. You're always in character, and then they talk in terms of good show, bad show. If you're out of uniform, including you don't have your name tag on, that's bad show, and they talk about that. But I'm going to go at a little different angle on the yelling part too. Oftentimes, when you feel like you're having to yell at somebody and not getting things done, it's when you tolerate, look the other way, and then you get finally fed up, and then you yell at them. I've heard that described. I think it's Ken Blanchard called that seagull management. Every now and then you fly in, squawk a lot of shit all over everybody, and then fly out. And the way you solve that is and by the way, this is my biggest complaint on some of our instructors is if I ever walked in and somebody's in class out of uniform, there's a problem. I'd walk in and there'd be a kid wearing socks and I would immediately see it. Why is that kid wearing socks?
Mhm.
Well, if they said he has this kind of disease and he's, the only way he's allowed to be on the floor is okay. I'm good with that. If I walked in and, one of the women have hooped earrings or, somebody has jewelry on in class or whatever it is, I see it immediately.
Mhm.
And I would expect that the staff member, they bow in and somebody's out of uniform, they're going to fix it right now. And the problem is if they don't see it, then somebody does that 2 or 3 or 4 times, and then they get mad because, you let them do it 4 or 5 times and then you corrected it.
Yep.
Right. So that's the biggest thing with staff is when you're running multiples, it's harder because you've got to have the branch manager be very clear on it. And every now and then what I would see is a branch manager who didn't have moral authority, right? He shows up in jeans and a t-shirts and then goes back and puts his uniform on. And then he's trying to tell everybody else that they've got to be in uniform. You've got to make sure that you never show up out of uniform.
Mhm.
And, again, if it's an on-time policy, if you ever violate the on-time policy, you got to make sure you hold yourself accountable. Like on our staff meetings, I wasn't always there. Sometimes I was traveling for work. I had other things, but everybody knew far in advance what's going on. This person's in charge and so forth. But if I ever overslept, right, then I'm just as guilty of the violating the policy as they are. And if I didn't hold myself accountable, I lost moral authority with them.
All right. No, I think that helps a lot, sir. And I will also work on being more specific with my verbal communication because
Yeah.
I think probably 99.5% of the time I don't yell.
Yeah.
There may be that 0.5% of time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
is
and
your dress
whoever
code?
gets-
Yeah, is your dress code written, Tim?
It feels like it was at a certain point, and I couldn't tell you. where it was.
Well, then that's a no.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a no.
Here's the solution.
Yeah.
You just sit down and you do a simple 1 or 2 page
Yeah.
and you write it out. You have a little staff meeting and you give it out and you have everybody initial it. And, when I was changing something, I came in with, here's 50 polo shirts and I got everybody's size and, here's 2 of them. And here's what we're doing. It's not like I made them scramble, but here's what we're doing starting, tomorrow. Here's the deal. And, if people were getting scruffy, their haircuts weren't good, one thing or another, I often took them, and I had the resource of the Paul Mitchell people, but, took them all in mass. If it's one particular person, and by the way, you get this, right? The funny story of Steve Jobs is back when he worked for Atari is they wouldn't let him work the day shift because everybody complained because he smelled. They made him come in at night. But if somebody has body odor or they just don't look the part for whatever reason or whatever, the things with jewelry and dress is that's easy to spell out. With hygiene, sometimes people need to be taught, right?
Yes.
And in our environment, you get the instructors who come in and they train for 3 hours and they stink all to high heaven and they just throw their uniform on. And, we always made them have a workout uniform and a teaching uniform at the school. So, if you're going to work out, here's what you're working out in and here's what you're changing into before you teach. And by the way, take a shower for fuck's sake, right?
Yeah, I kept tabs on my head instructor and my main program director. If they weren't up to speed, I talked to them. And if it was anybody else, then it falls backwards. So my head instructor has to take anybody that's in the classroom that's a staff member. I don't deal with them directly, only with my head instructor. And I don't deal with any office assistants or assistant managers. Only I deal with my head program director. And then they pass it down on hygiene, dress, and everything. And if I see my lower members are not, not my head instructor aren't up to, par, I don't go to that member. I go to my head instructor and say, hey, I thought we were going to follow these rules kind of thing. I put you in charge. I expect you to, take care of that. And the simplest thing, Tim, is the same way you put the rules of the school. You have a separate one. It says the rules of the staff, and then you put down things on being late, vacation, dress, hygiene, all those kind of things. And that way, there's no a gray area. Everybody sees it right there. It's on the wall where they see it, back in the instructor's room or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Hey, Tim, we'll stay on you. What were some of your takeaways from this last weekend?
Oh, well, the tour was a phenomenal experience. Again, as I mentioned, having, some of the things that we do, I don't have opportunity or maybe the thought to do them. So, just the experiences that we've had at some of these events are just, to me, lifetime experiences. So that was great. I really enjoyed Robert Pizzini and his book. We're as soon as I get through it, we're going to incorporate it somewhere into leadership system. I love the fact of how he touched on the issues of sleep, nutrition, and exercise, and how much that affects your success. We know that, and we try to get that across, and it's great to have some written backup, I guess, for other people to pick up on it.
Yeah, some people think because they're younger, they don't need all that, but
Right.
Everybody, regardless of age, needs that kind of stuff.
Right. Always good talking with people. Stephen and I don't see him on here, but that's right. He's probably still driving or something, but we got a chance at lunch. We went ahead and, as he said, we stuck to the agenda and went over and had lunch over at across the street there. And, it was just two of us initially, and just a good conversation. And
the Sunday agenda kind of took a major shift with everybody wanting to fly and all that stuff.
Right. So some of that one-on-one time that you get with people, I think, is always great. When we were talking about different ideas for different meetings, one of the things I noticed, so it was nice having, getting a chance to be over at the school, and for a lot of people to see Grandmaster Smith, teaching that type of class. However, with people spread out over all sorts of different hotels, I think we lost a little bit of that after hours interaction.
That's good feedback.
Yeah. So, whenever possible, I think it's great when most of us are at the same hotel,
All the same place.
at least close, and we get a little more of that going out to dinner, after hour stuff. So, yeah,
that is good.
All in all, phenomenal. Kyle had a great time. He couldn't stop talking about it.
He got to fly, right?
He did.
Okay, I want to hear about that, Kyle, when Tim finishes here.
I'm good. I'm finished. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Kyle, you're on. Tell us about the flying.
Well, why do you want to hear about that?
I did.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead. I mean, it's all cool, but go good.
Yes, it was exciting, and Mr. Wong did it with me, and I know he had fun, and I think it was a good team bonding thing, because even though it's simple and you trust it, everyone still is a little excited and nervous, and you're doing it together. And they kept telling me to breathe and relax, but it's kind of hard when your feet aren't on the ground, especially as a martial artist. So, but it was a fun experience and good bonding with the people in person, and not just seeing you guys on screen, because I feel like we know each other a little bit better each time. So it was very fun, and thank you to everyone.
Yeah.
William, anything to add to that?
I gotta say, it was a blast flying out there. It really felt like you were flying, just hovering over the air, and really following directions was really key. It's like I thought about our basic class and how we're teaching basics, and the instructor's there and they show a video, and that could be like the black belt training video for the popcorn bucket, and they're prepping you and they're preparing you to go out there and to perform and do this thing And it's really important to be able to follow those directions and make sure your chin is up, just like for break balls, chin down, but it's the opposite. Keep your arms in front. So they gave all the instructions, and it was pretty simple, but it wasn't exactly the easiest to be able to execute, right? I saw a lot of people confused and not sure what to do and staying stiff, and they're saying, hey, kind of loosen up a little bit, relax, and follow, chin up. One time I was even going to go out there without my mask, and Clay had to save me. I forgot to throw my mask on. So anyways, that related to sticking with those basics and being able to follow directions. Very
And,
cool.
Jeff, you did it too, right, CO?
Yes,
Some
sir.
feedback
I've-
from,
Yes, sir. I've gone skydiving before. It was really good experience.
How did that compare? See, that's what I wanted to know, is how it compared.
Why don't we? We're not running an iFly.
Yeah.
What you're missing, Master Oliver, is the bonding that it created among our members. Even Lee Miltier, had the cojones, we might say, to do it. And so I think William's observations are very well taken, because anytime you do something like that, the takeaway is, how can you improve your intro? How can you improve your basic class when you're doing instruction? Because now this is the first time you got to be a student for probably a long time, and how the instructor's reacting with you and creating that rapport and things like that. Did they treat you right? Those are all things that become a real important learning tool for you to improve the instruction at your school. So
I did think his staff training was really well done, and as well as the uniform, the outlook, the attitudes. Everybody I interacted with was super. Would everybody agree with that?
So Christian, our program director, he went in on his own, and he said that he was greeted by the 19-year-old at the receptionist, and she was completely flat, and she was like, hi, welcome to our iFly. What can I do for you? And then he's like, oh, I'm excited to fly or whatever. And she's like, okay, well, we have our one package that you can do this, or if you pay a little extra, which is really, really fun, you can do this. And he was like, what the hell, right?
So you
and
learned
like,
what not to do.
Right? Yep.
See, that's the good thing. You can learn what to do, what not to do. But both of them are learning experiences.
But for him, it was great, because he's like, we got to train our staff to make sure they're never like this ever. So that was cool to hear.
Yeah, so that contradicts what my my impression was, but it's good to know. Good to know.
Because we didn't interact with the front desk. We kind of walked by them.
No, I never interacted with them at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. And by the way, he has the same issue that we have, and I didn't see. Maybe it was. I didn't see even video on the front desk, which I would. If I was sitting in his office, I would have had a big flat screen TV where I see everybody coming in the front door and know what's going on.
Yeah, he had one of the tube of where they were flying in his office where he could watch them, but I didn't see the front desk.
He might have had the camera available to switch over to that.
Yeah, I don't know. What I would say, we didn't get into it as much as I would have enjoyed. Who in here is happy that you're running a martial arts school, not an iFly?
Oh, well, when I heard that 300,000 monthly a minimum to break even, I'm going like, and our guys are stressing over 20,000 break even.
Well, and 200,000 in a year in liability insurance.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
and complain about 1,000
and 10 million to startup costs. You've got to do a lot of traffic, and as is my neurosis, anytime I see a business like that, I try to run the numbers in my mind, and I had done that at 2 locations here in Colorado and couldn't figure out how they make it. And in his case, he said 40% of his revenue was U.S. military. Well, that's reoccurring income.
Yeah.
But he also said that he does more of that than every other iFly in the country combined.
Yeah.
So they're almost exclusively relying on new business every time somebody walks in the door.
And didn't he say he needed 2,500 people a month to come in to break even? Was that right?
It was 25 or 3,500.
2,500 a month.
2,500 a month.
That was his target visitors. I don't know if that was his break even.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't go down that path too far. But yeah, you start seeing how other businesses are structured and what their break-even points are, and it's pretty easy to suddenly appreciate what the business we're in. Jack, or William, what were some of your takeaways? And Jack, you next, I guess.
Well, I really enjoyed him going through the 10. We're talking about Bob going through the 10 essentials, and we only went through, I believe, 3 of them of leadership, and that was really awesome for me to hear, and it's something that I feel like I needed to hear, and I'm excited to be able, like Tim, to be able to implement that into my leadership and into my staff as well, and have them, broken down, and even have a book and a workbook to go through as well. And what I found even more interesting is that when I listened to Lee Miltier on Sunday, there was some mirroring effect. They were kind of talking about some of the same things, which just like, wow.
It was very close. Yeah.
It was. They were like right on point, and you could see the energy and the vibe between the two as well, as far as that same mindset. So yeah, got a lot out of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Jack, what were some of your takeaways?
Boy, where to start? I really liked Hung's enthusiasm. I liked how he, gave so much credit. Sorry, it's 82 degrees here and I got flies buzzing around. He gave so much credit to martial arts, and so he always brought it back to teaching and instructing. So what kind of role we have for future kids. So I thought that was good. But I think the key thing that stuck out, I was doing my notes at the airport, and and you guys trimmed all the fat on this, was 100 leads, 20 enrollments, 15 renewals, 2%. And just staying on that, I realized okay, I'm short leads. I need to get my lead flow up. We need to it broke it down to just what I need to focus on, not this parent screaming about this or this, just always back to, are we hitting the numbers, and where am I going wrong on that? But there was countless other things, like Tim said, going on these excursions out to the Navy Yard and all those other things. So it was really, really beneficial. And I'm going some more through my notes now and okay, focus this number 1, this number 2. And so lead flow, I've got to get up, prices, I've got to get up, all the basics. I've still got to do better on. And then Master Smith's great job of black belt verbiage. I filmed most of that, and just how much more we need to do that in the class, and all the things you guys have been preaching for. Sometimes it just takes that to hit home. So all good.
Excellent. And everybody, any notes you took, any implementation steps? Jason, you're always great about this. You were the first up on deck, but any of that stuff that you can share in the Facebook group, everybody would, I'm sure, appreciate it. Krista, you've been kind of quiet. What were some of your best takeaways?
Simplifying my business, just the whole, I've heard you talk about it before, batching everything. I feel like oftentimes I get carried away with the minutia of everything, and it can distract me from the whole, not just from my business, but also from instruction, and simplifying that as well. And not feeling like I need to do this huge leadership program in order to make it a good leadership program. I can take the stuff that I have and kind of direct it in a different way. So that was really impactful for me. Also, seeing Grandmaster Smith teach that class, seeing him in action was really amazing. I recorded it. I'm going to make my staff watch it, and we're going to dissect it and make sure that they're doing the black belt verbiage, because I think we really lack that in our classes, and just how to do that was really impactful for me. I did agree with Tim on that. I missed us being more centrally located, because in the past, when I've gone, we've had a 90-minute lunch one day where we all hang out together, and the after hours stuff. You know, and I got to spend time with other school owners, but usually it's more of the other school owners. So you get to pick everybody's brain. So I did miss that a little bit by being that way. And also Virginia Beach is a little far from Seattle. So I would have brought my staff this time, but I didn't. I felt like it was just too long of a trip. So
It's pretty much as far as you can get and be in the
yeah, yeah,
state,
yeah.
short of
There's
Miami, I guess.
yeah, there's no direct flights. And I just was like, I have to close my school when I do it because I have a small team. So I felt like the travel time was a little too much to bring everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I had to fly in through Baltimore.
Yeah.
Which almost seems like what's the bother? Because it was a 25-minute flight, I think, from Baltimore. But
Krista, can you post that video on the Facebook group, please?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy
Thank
to.
you.
yeah, good point. Anything that anybody did video or audio, post it in the group for everyone to share. That would be wonderful. Rob, it's this is your first meeting back since your government was crazy and our government wouldn't let poor Canadians swim across the border from Niagara Falls there.
I could have swam. It's hard to carry luggage with you.
Go over the falls in a barrel and
Yeah, no, fantastic meeting. It was just awesome to bounce so many ideas off everyone. And all the questions that I came in with, I'm just redoing my schedule now for, to fix a lot of our issues, and all the questions I had just automatically got answered. I was nervous about implementing the schedule. And then, Senior Master Moody said at one point, just like a week notice and that's fine. And that was like the exact information that I needed. That was one. Another one was the time frame, getting rid of a lot of the adult classes that I have that aren't needed, was kind of my hang up. And Jeff had the exact same answer for me that I needed there. And then another thing I think I took away was Stephen Castillo gave me this idea, because I'm always, time management is a huge issue, and I have the staff there during the day, and I'm thinking, how do I keep these guys busy and doing something? Meanwhile, I have all this marketing to do, and it was a blinding flash of the obvious when he said, we'll get the staff to take 4 major marketing activities off of your plate every month. And I was just like, that's so stupidly easy. I don't know why I never thought of that. So that's my plan. I got them all to work now. We've just got our door knockers in today. So running around the neighborhood handing these out. So yeah, so we have all of our, not all, but we have a lot of marketing activity going on now. And so I got everything I needed answered, plus more stuff that I didn't even know I needed. It was fantastic.
Yeah, good. Ryan, are you there?
Ryan, Yana.
Earth to Ryan. Going once.
He's
I'm here. Sorry, couldn't get unmuted.
Oh, there you go. Well, what were some of your takeaways, Ryan?
Well, it was nice to have some clarification on and I know I was having a hard time articulating with you guys when you were explaining, but the idea of keeping a basic class only, and then they're in that class if they don't renew till their agreement expires.
Yeah. And
then, of course, how to make the leadership program and Black Book Club or whatever, make those stronger and solid. Sorry, I might get yelled at, but you caught me working out, so I'm out of breath. But
well, at least you know you were listening, so when he called your name, it wasn't like
I'm always listening, but sometimes I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But the guest speaker was nice. I always like the people you bring in. I haven't gotten to his book yet. I really enjoyed hearing Master Moody be able to explain. He didn't get enough time, in my opinion, but being able to explain more thoroughly his terminology and letting the group ask some questions, although the group did get a little excited and didn't let Master Moody finish explaining. But I look forward to reading his book, and then I forget the date, his webinars in April, I believe.
Yeah. April 3rd. Yeah.
April 3rd, yeah.
I should probably post that now.
It was beautiful. I can't wait to get that terminology and they're explaining it, just the subtle differences and the minutia of it, but there's so much to learn and divulge and take from it. A martial artist, I feel, always take for granted that we know everything already, especially once, you know, people get black belt and all of a sudden they're master and everything.
Yeah. 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 I mean, you know, just because you're a master in one area doesn't mean you've mastered another area. It's that constant evolution and learning that's so important for everybody. Excellent. Anybody else have some takeaways you want to share? Some great stuff here. Anybody we've missed? Well, Heidi and Jeff, the one takeaway, of course, is never miss a meeting.
Understood.
I got something.
Go ahead.
It was very interesting having a conversation with one of the pilots and the trainers over at the helicopter area. And they were explaining about the training that's involved and the commitment, and that you're a volunteer to be in that. And if you don't want to be in there, then get out.
Yeah.
And that's the same commitment that we need to black belt. And it was interesting because for me, it takes about 3 years to get to black belt for my students. And for them, it's about the same time to get to becoming a pilot and go through that program. And then the ongoing continued education as well. And then how they cycle and all these different things. It just reminded me a lot about how we're structured in the martial arts. So I found that very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a comparison.
I found the conversations with those guys to be the most valuable of the time on the naval base. I mean, the carrier was fascinating. I can't even imagine something being afloat with that big a flight deck and you know that big a hangar and everything. For those of you who missed it, that flight deck just seems like it goes on forever. What did they say? They can launch 4 planes simultaneously off that deck. That just boggles my mind. That's how big it was. And what did they say? They carried like 76 jets on the in that hangar.
And they
So
can launch them within 10 minutes if necessary.
Wow.
That's what I found amazing.
So they can go from being in the hangar to off the deck in 10 minutes.
Yes, in an emergency
Yeah,
situation.
that's almost as fast as when I fly United or these airlines at the airport taking off.
Yeah, completely different world. But the conversations with the whatever the correct term is, but with the gentleman that we worked with in the morning, I found that fascinating. You know, and listening to their cycle of training, the attitude that goes into it, the level of professionalism, the conversation about, you know, they do classroom one day, simulation the next, and how those cycles work, what the different modules were. I thought all of that was very applicable and very translatable to us. Even on the carrier, one of the things that I think a lot of us, it's certainly Master Smith, you and I are guilty of that, is not doing enough reverence to the lineage, reverence to the hierarchy, reverence to the value. You know, if you notice in the carrier, you know, the plaques of who does what and everything, and all throughout the ship, there's recognition and one thing or another, even the little museum for the namesake of the carrier and what his background was and why it was named after him. I mean, those are all things. It tends to be more evident at like Annapolis and West Point, where they talk about the long gray line, the long blue line, and you know the John Paul Jones tomb and so forth. But it is something we all need to take away from. Master Moody, I think, is something that as a martial arts organization, ATA has done it as well as I've seen. You know, kind of our background, I think we tended to Americanize and take for granted all of that stuff. But I know the ATA ceremonies and the ceremonial uniforms and all the different rites of passage and so forth. To me, anytime we're in a military environment, everything from dress code and bearing to what all the different medals and patches mean to recognition of the lineage and the history and establishing the culture, all of that stuff, from my standpoint, is extremely valuable and useful. Any other takeaways from the weekend before?
I got a takeaway from back here at my school.
Yeah.
I realized that at our school, I don't have the culture that's needed while I'm gone. Kind of like what Tim was talking about while he was, you know, the dress code and so forth. But the culture, I think the mission, there's something off. I'm hoping that, you know, as I read through some of these leadership traits that need to be implemented, that I'm able to train my staff in a way so that I can feel confident when I leave that things will run smoothly and that they care about the school. Like as simple as leaving trash around. I know they're teenagers, but you cannot leave trash around, the way that they act, being respectful towards others. There's just a laundry list that I have of takeaways that I got reported when I got back this morning.
Yeah.
So I got a lot to learn in those the realm of leadership and building that culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is, the recognition is the first step to fixing it. Excellent. Excellent. Anybody else? Mr. Clay, any takeaways from you other than it was fun to fly?
I think the whole experience was refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
Sometimes after you've done this for a while, you can think that you've heard it all, but just like with black belt verbiage, it's good to hear your success verbiage over and over, and you get a little bit more each time if you're paying attention. So, it was refreshing, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Dina, jump in.
Thank you, sir. I really enjoyed everything that we learned. So I love the bullying, learning conflict, violence, abuse, the different stuff like that was really empowering to me. I love the nutrition, exercise, and all that. The hydration, that was really empowering for me. And I just feel like every time I go, I've only been twice now, but every single day, I feel like I pull so much information out and just really want to implement it so much more. And I see when we actually do how much you guys really know what's going on and how to fix it and really get us going.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Great.
thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Anything else before we call it a day? Jeff, do you have any questions?
The other Jeff or me?
Either one. I was pointing at Jeff Cash, but of course that doesn't help on Zoom.
I have a ton, but I figure I'll wait till everyone posts their stuff up.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm
Jeff's
bummed I
yellow.
missed it, but
Yeah, the biggest takeaway for me is just showing up. Is just showing up because you get all that information, and it's some of it's osmosis and some of it's just presents itself when you need it.
Mhm.
So so many different things that were on side conversations on just the leadership speeches that were being given, some of the bullying stuff that was done, and just being able to get their questions answered right away was invaluable. It really was.
Yeah. Great. Any last words? Go ahead.
Grandmaster Smith did amazing also with the class. There was so much black belt verbiage out there that it just was overwhelming. And the way that he does it, and he's actually speaking and guiding and motivating, but also adjusting and getting them able to perform better and cleaning up their techniques and getting what he needs out of them by doing everything he tells us. So it was very cool to see it live in action, and having it all done at once was amazing as well, even incorporating the parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Smith, you can't tell you've been doing that effectively at the highest level for a couple of years now.
Yeah, and that was it was definitely different scenario there with all the different ages and belts, and there was white belt juniors in there that were 5 and 4 or 6, and then there was older adults that were black belts even in there. So, you know, sometimes it's hard to find that neutral ground, but the bottom line is that you constantly have to make sure that they understand why they're there, and that we are a black belt school, and they start understanding that their goal setting is probably the most important thing to help them to succeed, not only in the martial arts, but in life too. And that's why it makes it, if you're getting that across, the way it's supposed to go, it makes your renewal process, that's what I'm talking about when I say sell from the floor. It's not like you're talking to them how much it's going to cost and this and that from the floor. No, all we're doing is talking about making sure that they have filled out their vision sheet and they see in their mind's eye what their goals are. Because you see, once they put them to writing and you get them to do those 4 simple things that are going to guarantee they can be a black belt, then all we have to do is keep reminding them and keep them on track and have that vision sheet where they see it every day. And that's what makes the retention better and helps on your renewals.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
say that you did so well with the goals and the spotlighting. How many times you said, now that's a black belt answer right there, or that's a black belt technique right there. Like how well you spotlighted them. So between the goal setting, the verbiage, and the spotlighting, I mean, that was, I totally understood it that time.
And that's good that you saw that, because you see, every time you catch one of those kids doing something good, and then you tell them that's a future black belt, let's give him a big hand. Now, in his mind, he now knows that everybody has recognized that he could be a black belt someday. So that makes that goal that much more solid for him, rather than somebody have their own goal and not think they can ever make it. So that's your job when you're teaching, is to catch every one of those students doing something good, to let them know that they're on the right track, that they are going to be a black belt if they keep doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, good. If there's any other questions, jump in. If not, we'll call it a day. Master Moody, Mr. Dunn, Master Smith, I can keep you for a couple seconds.
I know Miss Dina has a question about pricing.
Go ahead, Miss Dina. She fell off her virtual back.
Unmute yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I do have a question with, I had 2 parents call on the phone that were new, that were supposed to come in for their second intro, and they kept on about, well, how much does it cost? How much does it cost? How much does it cost? And no matter what I said, they wanted to know prices. And I just want to know, what is your best way to get through that?
Here's always been my simple rule of thumb for staff on training, which is the first time they ask about price, ignore. Right. So the call often starts with, hey, I just wanted to find out how much your lessons are. Oh, is this for yourself or for a child? Oh, it's for my son. Great. How old is he? Fantastic. Has he ever done this before? No. Well, how'd you find out about us? Well, and right. I mean, you just ignore and keep, go right in. The second time, the answer was always the introductory class. So, well, yeah, but how much are the lessons? Well, as I was explaining, we have, 2 free weeks of lessons or 2 free lessons. There's no cost or obligation. Gives you a chance to come and meet the instructor, see the facilities, learn more about the program, and then a chance for us to figure out what's going to be the best approach for you. And in most cases, that's enough. But then you get the mom who says, I don't want to bring him down if I don't get him, I don't want to get him or her excited about this if I don't know if we can afford it, whatever the third time. So the third time, our standard was give them a range, well, as I explained, there's no cost or obligation. In general terms, it's going to average. And then I would give them, the top end is what our normal monthly tuition, and the bottom end would be if you paid in full for a year, divide by 12, right? Now, I didn't explain to them what it was, but, maybe it's $297 to $397 a month on average. Or it's 297 to 347, or whatever those numbers come out to be. I would say on average, it's going to range around X to X. Again, there's no obligation on the first couple of lessons, and that's going to give us a chance to figure out what makes the most sense for you and what'll work for the budget. So ignore, go back to the introductory lesson, and then give them a range.
Okay, that's what I did. I just felt like they were just pushing and pushing and pushing still more. And I'm like, oh my God, these people, I don't want to.
Well, what you don't want to ever do is look like you're being evasive, because if you look like you're being evasive, it seems like you have something to hide. And we don't have anything to hide. But what we do know is that's putting the cart before the horse, right? And I've had people say, well, why didn't you just tell me the price up front? Say, well, you don't know what it is. You haven't had a chance to see the program. You haven't had a chance to look at it, evaluate it, know what it entails. On your side, on our side, we don't even know whether your son or daughter is going to be a good fit for the program. So that's why we do an evaluation and approve or disapprove, for any particular student to attend. And then, we don't know what's going to be the most appropriate way that's going to work for your budget. It's going to, be the most appropriate program for your son or daughter.
And the only
Okay, good.
the other thing
That's
that-
kind of what I did.
The only other thing I would add is when I'm rescheduling for that second lesson, I want to make sure that they understand when they come back, they're going to get a chance to try the regular class. So we get a chance to see how Tommy does in the class. You're going to get a chance to see if this is a good fit and he likes it. And that'll give us a chance to go over his evaluation and let you know how he does. And then based on how well he does, we'll go over our different programs and explain how everything works. And that way we'll have a more accurate number for you. And
that's perfect, because that's exactly what I did. So I did everything right. So I just feel good about that part.
Did you get the appointment? Did you get the appointment?
They did not come back for that second appointment. It was for their second.
Oh,
but they're
so
I'm
this
supposed
is-
to come back for
yeah.
Wednesday.
So this was
isn't
for
on
an
the phone
intro,
script.
not
We
a,
thought it was on the phone script.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Master Smith was answering the right question and I was answering the wrong question. Gotcha.
Well, it still helps.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
okay, Master Oliver. I know that usually never happens.
No, usually it's the opposite.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that note, we'll call it a day. Thanks, guys.
I got a
Master
question about
Oliver?
these.
Go ahead, Jason.
Jeff and I are on
Hang
here.
Hey, hang on, Jason. You had a
Yeah,
question.
really quickly. So our lease is up in 10 months. Our last time we did the lease, we did it for 10 years. There's a spot right beside us that hasn't been leased out for 3 years. And the other thing is when we got it, our lease was at like $27, $28 a square foot. The spot beside us is trying to go for $23 a square foot, and it still hasn't been rented out. So I'm trying to think about, if I'm trying to negotiate.
I'll tell you what. I don't want to give you an off-the-cuff answer on this one.
Sure. Okay.
Post all the details probably in the discussion forum, and then next time we'll go into it in depth.
Go right. Sure. All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Because if I give you a quick answer, it's probably not going to be a good one. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Good to be in the driver's seat.
Jeff, can you pop back in about 10 minutes and we can sort out some logistics details?
Cash.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Well, were you and Master Smith following up today?
Pop, you said come back in about 10 minutes?
What were you and Master Smith
sir.
following up today? Yeah, if you could come back in about 10 minutes, let us get some logistical details ironed out.
Okay.
Did we lose Bob? Oh, no, there's Bob. Never mind. I keep looking at the screen and not